Cari amici di Autostyle, anche quest'anno ci dobbiamo preparare per un'avventura transatlantica, alla ricerca delle novità del design auto forte. Ricorderete che già lo scorso anno Claudio Messale, con il supporto di Monica Wagner e Claudia Steinham, ci ha portato da Colonia a Detroit e ritorno, consentendoci di entrare nel turbine delle decisioni economiche e tecniche che hanno condotto al primo importante veicolo elettrico Ford. L'impegno non è stato da poco perché ci siamo trovati, si fa per dire, nel pieno delle discussioni del vertice Ford, con alla testa Bill Ford. E perché gli argomenti che hanno portato alla nascita di Mach 1 erano quantomeno del bel rompicapo. Si trattava infatti di elettrificare niente meno che un mostro sacro dell'automobilismo sportivo, la Mustang. Ogni argomento nel progetto è stato approfondito e Mach 1 ci è molto piaciuta, anche se da tradizionalisti non riusciamo a toglierci dalla testa il rombo del motore di Mustang. Ma preparatevi perché anche quest'anno Claudia e Monica ci hanno organizzato un nuovo viaggio in territori aspri e difficili, dove un tempo galoppavano solo cavalli selvatici, broncos, e dove ora invece domina la linea nuovissima dei fuoristrada Bronco, nata dal team guidato da Paul Wright. Cari amici, partiamo quindi per una nuova affascinante avventura nel design auto.
Welcome to Autostyle Digital Plus Design, and welcome to this important brand and this important project. We'll discover the new Bronco model, and we can just run like the free horses in this exciting journey. So let's start with the first video, and we have very, very big surprises for you.
This country has a strange relationship with the wild. As much as we talk about it, and paint paintings of it, and sing songs about how we're destined to be it, we seem to spend every waking hour in places that keep us away from it. So to get back to the wild, we need something built for it. Something that acts like it's been out here before. Because it has. Introducing the return of a legend. The all-new Bronco 2-door, the first ever Bronco 4-door, and the adventure-ready Bronco Sport. Built to get you to all those places you normally only see in nature documentaries. Built for capability, for adventure, for enjoying the open air, on the open road, in the parts of the world without posted speed limits. Because if something is going to be called a Bronco, it better be able to live up to that name. Meet the future of off-roading. The all-new Bronco family.
So it's very exciting to meet the new old Bronco, and it's a really big surprise. We can just start with the development video, just understanding how the new model were developed with the project, sketching and design. So I think we can start with the second video.
Hi, my name is Todd Will. I'm Global Director for Ford Design for all trucks and SUVs. Yeah, we're very excited to share with you the work of the design team today on this morning here in Michigan. You know, the whole process of developing a Bronco is a very exciting one for a design team because it's such an iconic product when it comes to Ford vehicles. So not only have we got the core Bronco, but we've expanded the Bronco family with the extension of that, or the addition of the Bronco Sport, four-door super capable SUV. So what makes a Bronco a Bronco? Well, Bronco's made up of millions of different stories. It's that versatility and capability, the adventure that it enables for the owner, are absolutely key to the whole Bronco story. You know, some of the really key aspects of getting the imagery correct, and it's very specific for Bronco, are about defining the architecture and the graphics that enable the lifestyle and the capability of the product. So we all know that Bronco is an American icon, but it's got a very strong global following that's almost bordering on cult status. So very early on in the process of design, we solicited Ford's global design talent to make a contribution and really expand on the bandwidth at that early stage. And the Australian team in particular, where the culture of outdoor fun and adventure spirit is really strong, contributed a large amount in the foundational stages on interior theme and experience.
Mac Thompson, McKinley Thompson, was the first African-American automobile designer in Detroit. And he came to work from Ford directly out of design college. And he was the one that penned the very first sketch of the Bronco. One of the earliest planning documents actually had GOAT, G-O-A-T, abbreviated on the top of the document because it goes over all types of terrain vehicle. The original Bronco entered in the 60s, which was a halcyon period of Ford design. We introduced the Mustang in 1964, the Bronco in 65, and the Bronco was going to be something different. It was going to be an off-road vehicle, but it was also going to be a great city driver as well. It was a different proposition from what was available on the market at the time.
So it was beautiful to see both tradition and heritage about this very iconic model and all the history, starting from the 60s for this really adventurous car. And but now in 2021, what changed in the Bronco philosophy? We can start with the new video and exploring all the design process.
I'm Bill Mangan, Chief Interior Designer.
My name is Ryan Olson, Interior Designer.
So this program, this was truly a journey that was grounded in human-centered design. We learned so much from ethnography. We had very specific, real people, truly real people. We had Bianca, we had Seth, Alex, James, and Dave. People whose lifestyles, their stations in life were varied. Their stature, their behaviors, their needs, everything about them was different. So, but when we looked through that lens and we really saw them and what they valued most, it gave us a framework and chapters in which we could really get into, understand this vehicle and leverage at different points in the program. So, for example, Seth, he's one of our guys. He's a medic from Boston, right? And his lifestyle, it's off-roading, extreme off-roading. And to meet those needs, to make that architecture to fit his needs first, that really set up how big can this thing, how active, how capable, how durable should this vehicle be. So that helps up that powertrain, that framework of what this thing needed to ascend to. In parallel with the ethnography, understanding who these people were, we went to various events. We went to everything from a local event here in Michigan, the Bronco Takeover at Silver Lake, to King of Hammers. Out in Johnson Valley, and Ryan, you went multiple times. You went again this year.
Yeah.
Wild stuff's happening there, and not just like it's Burning Man for the off-road community. So
yeah.
So to meet the needs of these various groups, what we found though that was distinctly Bronco between these different events, these people, was this need for modularity, this need for expression of for tactical expression. Can this vehicle take them where they need to go and meet their needs? Can it just for social or their emotional needs, can it meet them there? So that ability to configure and make it their own for whatever aspect of their life they're wanting to share and amplify, that's what this vehicle is all about.
Yeah.
So
a lot of very different people, and the Bronco has to be able to suit all their needs, as Phil was saying.
Yeah.
Modularity was probably the key way that we achieved that, because the vehicle will evolve with the customer and over time.
Okay, so case in point, one area that I'll focus on here is the instrument panel. It's simple, it's wipeable, it's durable. We divide it into zones, so you see this front face, it has the text zone. This is where your screen is. It's protected. This front browse comes over it. The top layer was a very functional zone, brought in device area. Hero switches up top, and it's all framed by these signature, these IP grab handles right here. Notice these bolts. These bolts are clues, right? This tells you, oh yeah, it says it's Bronco stamped into it. This tells you that it's modular. While yes, these are bolted to the frame, these can be taken off. They can be modified by the person. But could you imagine like a carbon fiber one, machined aluminum, walnut? Someone's going to do it. So make it your own, and that gives our customers as well as our groundswell of partners in expanding the vehicle, the aftermarket vehicle world, room to truly modify and input into this vehicle. So this is just tip of the iceberg. This whole vehicle will expand in ways over the years that it's going to be truly memorable. But this shows that an example of that. So you can see even from outside, you see like the TPO overmold, the signature, the orange here. And we use that grip. It's very tactical. It's meant to be. Yes, it's an assist, but it's more than that. It's also when you're driving at speed and terrain, it gives you more. It gives you a sense of stability. When we saw at the Bronco Takeover, you had people taking these roll bars with gauges and features and broad devices. You can bolt something to here, make up your own. This system is truly configurable and will be going forward. So this really gives a meaningful way for our customers and our partners to expand on this. DNA, that the question of what's the Bronco DNA for the interior, well, yes, simple. It was more the ethos of it, but there's little clues to the past. We had a 66 Bronco instrument panel. We went to this place called the Bronco Graveyard in Brighton, Michigan. And there's just little things that make a Bronco. So there's like the off-center gauge, the brow, the prominent brow. The old one had a big piece cut out of a chicane that was effectively for the steering wheel hand clearance. We had the same thing here, same reason, but we've leaned into that. So we took that. This not only does that, this is a brow now which protects the 12-inch touchscreen. 12 inches is big. Bigger is better, right? It's better because we learned this from our off-roading partners at Johnson Valley. The guys we had some experts, guys that have raced and won, guys that know what they're doing, and they strap an iPad on there, and they have their specific sat nav applications, and they need that because it needs to be big, it needs to be prominent, it needs to be something that they can see, at a glance and not be confused by it. So 12-inch screen, that's incredible just from a functional standpoint, especially at the highest level of off-roading.
So as Bill was mentioning, modularity is kind of the name of the game on this interior, and we do that because we realize that we're not going to be able to provide everything that the customer is going to need. The vehicle changes over time and with the customer's needs. So places where we've expanded upon that modularity are, for instance, on the top of the instrument panel here, we have kind of a service layer that was designed for bring your own devices, right? As you can see here, we have an accessory rail system that plugs in to a hard, rigid attachment point down in the substructure of the instrument panel for things like GoPros, sat navs, things that we can't necessarily predict in the future that the customers are going to want to modify. It's something that we learned really, really well out in testing in Johnson Valley and Silver Lake Sand Dunes with some of our partners like Brad Lovell and whatnot. So, but with that, certain changes like that drive additional content, which is really the name of the game here as well, is you have a USB and a USB-C here so that you don't have your cords draped over your IP in the event of an emergency. So the hero switches, as Bill mentioned, up here on top, great because as you can see, I'm in the passenger seat. These are things that the driver and the co-pilot can operate in the event of emergency as well. So siliconized, wipeable, cleanable. It's essentially convertible, as you can see, so everything had to be considered, right? As you can all see, the doors are off of the vehicle. They're a whole crazy design story in themselves, but what this illustrates is the instrument panel grab handles here go straight back to the crosscar beam, incredibly rigid, and anywhere that there's a bolt that you see on this interior that says Bronco stamped into the head of it, that indicates modularity. So these are 2 bolts. You can take them off, replace them with whatever you want. Can be done by the customer without taking any of the hard trim off or anything like that. That was kind of necessitated by the fact that we have an airbag in the curtain here, so phenomenal safety in this vehicle, which you don't get in some other vehicles. So with this 3 points of contact, we ended up with the standardized center console handle and standardized IP handles as well, both of which feature a rubberized overmold. So they're nice and comfortable in your hand when you're in that off-road situation, right? Some other unique points on the vehicle are the washout rubberized floor. That's something we learned from all kinds of our partners out there, that these things get dirty. The top comes off, everyone's muddy. I remember getting into this thing when we were out testing in the desert, and it was a mess. But if you can just take a hose, spray it out, it's just a great solution. We also have the overhead console up here where we have auxiliary switches. Again, this vehicle means different things to different people, so it's going to be used in a myriad of ways that we can't ever pretend to comprehend. What we can do on the entire vehicle is to provide the provision for customers to make it what they need or what they want. So we have 6 aux switches up top here, allowing for that modularity and the customers to customize their vehicle the way that they want it or desire it.
Hi, I'm Missy. I'm the color and materials designer for the Bronco, and we have some really cool door bags to show you. So in case you haven't noticed in the million pictures on the internet, you can take the doors off your Bronco. So the cool thing about these bags is that they're water resistant for whatever happens when your roof is off, your doors are off. And they have these ergonomic handles all over the bag so you can get a grip on your doors. They're really easy to remove, but this just makes it a little bit easier to slide on and off your door. And it also has a soft brushed material on the inside, so when you have all your doors stored on your vehicle, they aren't knocking against each other, they aren't getting scratched. Your paint job will stay flawless, which is really great, and it'll keep your doors looking as good as they came. And then we also have a grip, sort of a grippy nylon material on the bottom as well, so that adds stability. It holds your door bags in place, and it keeps everything from rattling around in your trunk cargo area. And then if you notice, we also have a bunch of clips as well, so all your door and roof bags clip together to hold your doors in place. So it's really kind of as noiseless, as soundproofed as we could possibly make it, to kind of keep your journey really nice, convenient, kind of what you want. You don't want a lot of noise. And then the coolest part about these door bags is that they have a QR code on them. So when you scan the QR code, it'll take you to a Ford website to give you instructions on how to remove your door, how to put it back on. So no more like keeping a manual, flipping through a manual. We really tried to make these as user-friendly as possible. We know people don't typically like to keep their door bags when they have removable doors. But we think this is actually going to make your experience of taking your doors on and off a lot better in your journey wherever you take your Bronco.
So we can see that experiencing with people that will use in the future this vehicle was beautiful for the designer, just to create something that was very special. So the door, you can just remove the door to have an opening, an open architecture, very, very beautiful. But we can just have more and see the next process, see the next video.
I'm Marty Coons, and I'm a creative exterior designer. I was in charge of overall body side, cabin, capable front end, modular front bumper, and rear end appearance. Bringing back an icon is not an easy task, especially one that's been dormant for 25 years. So we had to be really thoughtful. We had to talk to enthusiasts, experts, potential customers. To get the right insights, we needed to build the right vehicle for them. We started off by sketching around the 5 archetypal customers. And we sketched around their use cases, their pain points, their moments that brought them joy. And through that exercise, the modular concept really came up as something that became a guiding principle for our design process. We wanted to be able to offer fenders that could be unbolted and removed and upgraded at any time. So if the customer didn't like how the fender looked, or if they got damaged by going down a trail, they could be easily replaced and removed and be exactly what that customer wanted. The doors are also all removable. You can take all 4 doors off and put them in the trunk of the vehicle without having to leave your doors behind. And that really required us to push the limit of how thin we can make a door, because we needed to make sure that we could take all doors with us and not ask you to leave any of your doors behind. All of the roof panels are also made out of the lightest material that we could afford, because we didn't want the roof panels to become a deterrent for open air experience. Awkward, heavy to remove roof panels to limit your ability to have open air experience. Everything that we thought the customer would want to remove and personalize themselves, we designed it that way, and it became a guiding principle of how we thought about this vehicle. We made the body side as simple as possible to give the customer enough room to define their own vision of what they wanted a Bronco to be.
Hi everybody, my name is Robert Gilardi. I was the design manager on the interior of the Bronco, and I know that you've already gotten a lot of the stories from Bill Mangan and Ryan Olson on what we did on the front row cockpit, but we certainly focused a lot of our attention on the cargo area and places for accessories, which I'll go through in a few minutes. So what you're looking at right here is you're looking at this fold-out table. What we've done is we've built in attachments into the sheet metal of this swing gate so that you have an ability to put this or many other kinds of accessories on it. And when you get a 4-door, there's this really cool feature that's a slide-out tailgate. So we got a lot of feedback from our customers and from our expert panels about being able to open it up just like this. We're out here, you know, it's a little cold, but we're out here next to a lake, and if you want to kind of sit down and hang out, there's a slide-out tailgate that's super cool. Because it has a nice little Easter egg on it. Just like the tailgate on the first generation Bronco, we've got the same FORD letters that are in it, so it's just like having a tailgate on your original Bronco. It's a nice little piece of history. All right, one of the other cool things about the Bronco that we considered in the design process was obviously the doors, right? So this 2-door's got the door on, and you can see through the window, and you can see that that cactus gray 4-door show vehicle has got the doors off. But we had a really great idea. I'm sure you guys all saw this on the that cyber orange 2-door show vehicle, which is what we're calling the half door. And what that is it's the door, but it essentially has an opening here. Now, not only is it a really cool graphic that accentuates all of the lines on the body and relates to all of the shapes that we put into the grab handles and everywhere else. But the whole design team, we went out to King of Hammers. We went out to lots of different events with Bronco owners and enthusiasts like yourselves. And we saw that there was a real need to be able to have sort of a combination of having the sight lines that you get when the doors are off, but the ability to have the rest of the door on. So this is a really cool feature. It's a really great idea.
I'm Dan Kangas. I'm an exterior designer for Bronco. I'm going to be talking about the exterior lighting on Bronco as well as some of the wheels. So for the exterior lighting for the Bronco, first and foremost, we were inspired by some of the Bronco heritage. And I think that's immediately apparent if you compare the newest gen with the first gen Bronco. If you look at the first gen Bronco, that lighting signature, you've got a dominant circular lamp with a small rectangular chiclet of a turn signal. So graphically, we wanted to maintain a very strong circular and horizontal graphic for the lit signature of this vehicle. For our inspiration, we looked at off-road motorsport as well as off-road enthusiasts. Primarily, we were inspired by the King of the Hammers off-road race in Johnson Valley, California. A super grueling race. It's about 165 miles off-road between rock crawling and high-speed desert flatland racing. We spoke to some of the participants, the competitors, some of their race teams, as well as the enthusiasts at the race to get a sense in what those competitors need to complete the race as well as win the race. Another thing is that on off-road trails, exterior lighting not only helps you see where you're going, but it helps other people identify you by lit shape and color. So we wanted to give Bronco customers a lit signature that's very obvious, very obviously Bronco. Tail lamps were heritage driven as well. They're very tall, slim lamps positioned very far outboard on the vehicles to give visibility around the spare tire. The lit signature itself is similar to the front graphic. You've got a circle of light that's interrupted by a horizontal element to give that feeling of an encapsulated, interlocked feel of elements.
Hi, my name's Dean Carvis. I'm the exterior chief of components, and I looked after all of the lighting, the wheels and the badging for the vehicle, for the Broncos, for both the Bronco Sport and the Bronco. What I'm going to talk about now is actually the wheel designs, and we actually did a lot of research with this, looking at the customers, understanding what sort of products they use, taking a lot of interest in the components and tools they would have out in the campsites or wherever they would go for the vehicle. So we looked at the details of those and how those details would actually reflect back into the theme. And it came apparent that there's a couple of strategic viewpoints as you go through it. So you have the smaller wheels. Obviously we're going from the 17 and we can go all the way up to 18, and that's the same for both the Bronco Sport and for the Bronco. So for both of these we want to make sure that there is a commonality in some of the design thematics. So when you have the lower ends, so when you have the big bend, the styling was fairly similar. So when you go to the other wheels for the outer banks, there's also a similarity. So we were looking at how we could give for the outer banks, which is more the premium customer, so you get the more luxurious interior. You also get that same sort of feel for the wheels. So you'd have the machined outer faces and you'd have the largest wheels for that vehicle. But then when you move to the Badlands and to the more off-road capable, we wanted to start looking at the off-road vehicle wheels. So when we looked at, say, some of the King of Hammers where you've got the beadlock style themes, we wanted to capture some of that, right? We wanted to capture some of that real strength and integrity for the form language, and that's what we actually did for those series. So within what we're looking at now on the Big Ben, you can see that we've got the beadlock or the beauty ring for where you can actually apply a beadlock to it, and we created that section and strength to the wheels. So we've got that flow, and I think we're giving the customer a really good spread of wheel designs that suits their needs within each of the ranges.
Hello, my name is Scott Anderson. I'm the Interior Design Manager for the Bronco Sport program. I'm really excited to help you guys understand more about the Bronco Sport today. We really wanted to look at people's lifestyles, how they use their vehicles in this particular space. A big part of our design process was human-centered design and thinking about how users might actually use the vehicle to camp, fish, hike, mountain bike, mountain climb, really enabling them to have an activity and enjoy that activity and also relax from it when they're done with that activity. So we did a lot of initial work to do mock-ups, deep research into our customer use cases. We had designers around the globe mocking things up inside their vehicles. For example, one of our designers in Australia, Sasha, actually cardboard mocked up his whole Escape interior, put a GoPro on his head, drove around, used his coffee holder, his phone holder, put things in the back of the vehicle like his mountain bike to get ready for activities. And those are the kind of things we did as a process in the design team to understand what the interior needed to be for this lifestyle. With Bronco, it has to be adventure ready, has to be capable, and able to bring all your stuff with you easily, and also have enough rugged nature so that's cleanable and simple when you want to get ready for your work day and work week. So with the Bronco Sport interior, it's all about creating this juxtaposition of soft forms that are comfort focused for daily driving, but also having these really nice inset mechanical elements where all the technology and features go to help you enable your activity. So the whole pod of the instrument panel is about protecting the nav screen. It harkens back to the original Bronco. Having the cutout and plan view around the gauge cluster and the pod is like the original 66 Bronco. All the information for navigation and geocaching and breadcrumbing is in the nav system right in front and center. There's a small port underneath that for your phone to store it. All that insight was driven through research and through actually design thinking. We also have things like TPO rubberized floors and tie downs and a lot of features in the cargo deck we'll talk about next. But with the front compartment, the big piece of this was creating a space that enabled you to be comfortable, but also enable your technology and integration with that technology.
All the details, all the designer explanation just goes around the driver. The driver is the focus on the Bronco and will be protected in every situation. But we have the last video and then very big surprise for you. So we launched the last
I'm Paul
video.
I'm the Chief Designer for Bronco and we're here at Michigan Proving Ground. And I'm going to talk to you now about one of our customers who really had a very big influence over what we were going to do. This is a young 21-year-old nanny who lived in LA, and like any nanny, she was living in someone else's house, carrying someone else's children during the daytime. But when it came to the end of the day, like all nannies on the planet, she was off, and the vehicle needed to go from being trusted to being carefree. That was really important. And taking the doors off and opening the vehicle up was really critical to what she needed to do. We recognised the fact that there were some issues with her existing vehicle. First of all, when you take the doors off a other vehicle, like a Wrangler for example, the doors are really big. You've got to store them somewhere. You need a garage. Bianca lives in someone else's house. She hasn't got a garage. So we did something which is very different. First of all, we made the doors short by dropping the glass into the door. These are frameless doors. And then we went further than that. We made them easy to lift off and very light because she's kind of small. And then more than that, we actually allowed him to put them into the back of the vehicle. So then the vehicle can be stripped bare on the side and you can carry all 4 doors on board. That's a world first. We made that easier still because the electrical couplings were easy to remove from the door. And then finally we had to move the mirrors from the door and onto the body, just like here. And that's a kind of very unusual execution, but it allows the door to be very slim so that we can fit them on board. But also now, it means that when she's driving, she's always got the mirrors on the vehicle, and that makes it safer for her, and it makes it safer for everyone else around her. This is very difficult to achieve technically, but it was definitely worth it. Well, when you start designing or trying to redesign an icon, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of expectation. You know that you've got to get it. Well, on the Bronco program, it was intimidating in a way because there was just so much expectation for it. There's a lot of love for this vehicle. We needed to bring it back and do it right. But what made it more difficult for us was just how ambitious we wanted to be. There are so many things that we wanted to do. We had multiple target customers. They all had very, very different needs, and we had to manage all of those needs and all those expectations and be very ambitious all simultaneously within a compressed timeline.
But as I said, I have a very big surprise for you, And Paul Wright is with us. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, thanks for having me. Really pleased to be here.
Thank you to be here. Thank you to be here. We saw beautiful videos about all the design process. And what's very interesting just to understand each part of this new model. And now you are here for the Q&A session, and we have a lot of questions by our public. So thank you so much for your time. And we can start with which are, for example, for this very iconic car, the best attributes that qualify the new model, the 2021 model?
What are the best attributes that define it? I think the function of the vehicle was really critical. So what's an interesting experience is when you actually look at what a hardcore, very capable, rugged off-road vehicle needs to do, you naturally end up shortening the front and rear overhangs. You lift the vehicle. You're very concerned about breakover angles, and then having enough protection on the body, like the skid plates, for example, and the rockers, to protect the vehicle when it's being used in a very extreme environment. That sort of drives a lot of things. Also, we push the body in, made it slim and hipped as possible, so it was as agile as possible when you're climbing through rocks and around trees. And then when you get above the belt, you know, it's the seating position needs to be relatively upright, so you'll feel the view is excellent. You know, and that actually, when you go through the process of evaluating the upper body architecture, you know, those fast A-pillars, those very sort of contemporary kind of execution that you see in every SUV on the planet, that doesn't work. It narrows your field of view, and so we made a very deliberate effort to move those A-pillars rearwards and upright so that the field of view was as open as possible. And actually, in a way, the function of the vehicle and how it gets used, that helps drive the major proportional components. And then on top of that, we then look at giving it an appearance that we think will resonate with the brand and also with the public.
So we can say that every user can define, can create his own Bronco, just modifying something there, just to have the best performance in their works, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. What we heard this expression is every Bronco is a snowflake, meaning that they're all different, and that's happened over time since we built the last Bronco. They've been through many experiences and journeys, and the public have changed them. So when you actually look for an original Bronco, it's quite hard to find one. They've all had some adaptation at all, and then we kind of recognize that this need to change is really important. As a vehicle gets handed down through a family, that's quite a common thread in the US. So we needed to embrace about how that could be done. We recognized the original Bronco was actually a very modular vehicle. It was very clever, and we thought, well, okay, here's a behavior, here's a principle that's true to the brand. And actually, here's a business opportunity as well to allow our Bronco to do many things and cover all these different bases, because the user groups are so varied. The difficulty, and I guess this is why nobody else does it to the same extent, is then how do you design the vehicle in such a way that it can be very easily updated by the public themselves? And so, you know, I like to reflect upon the fact that you can take the grille off any vehicle, right? But you'll end up with bits of broken plastic and bleeding knuckles after you've done it. Whereas ours, 6 bolts, and it comes out in a couple of minutes. So
yeah,
even in the areas that look familiar, actually we put a lot of effort into making the process of using the interchangeability and modularity really simple, really easy.
Yeah, and my little story with this model is when I was a child, I just have a toy by Hot Wheels that was called Flying Bronco. It was from 1984. Which is your first approach with Bronco?
Similar. I mean, I grew up in the UK where the Bronco was never on sale, and actually I had a toy Bronco when I was a child, a Matchbox toy, and I loved it actually, and I'd kind of forgotten about it. And my mother actually sent me a picture of it one day. She'd found it in a box of toys that she keeps for the grandchildren, and sent it to me, and I recognized it immediately. Yeah, weirdly enough. As a tiny child, I was pushing Broncos around on carpet, and as a grown-up, I'm driving them around off-road. It's quite a journey.
Yeah, sure. It's a memory that you cannot forget about this style and even the colors, even the some details during the years just were very recognizable. And we watched these beautiful videos, and I have an idea. It's very hard to distinguish between exteriors and interiors in the Bronco, because it's just an environment to go inside and outside, just going into the nature and very extreme environments.
Yes, and I think that was probably reflected in how we approached the design of the vehicle. It's kind of normal in the car industry for the designers to sit and sketch beautiful bits of artwork of the outside, and then another team to work on the inside, and then you hope somehow they come together after going through a clay modeling phase. That wasn't right for us. All of the initial sketches were all about use, and they were all very interactive. They were inside outside illustrations, and actually we had to really change how we approach things. So we sketched this sort of vehicle as in its entirety first of all.
Yeah.
And then the first model we made was a vehicle that you can climb in and out of. We made it out of packing foam. It had all of the modularity that we've ended up delivering, and we used it to really experience the environment that the users would ultimately get to experience as well. We went without the scale models completely, and we pushed out the full-size clay models quite a lot. And actually, we were leaning heavily on VR, because as our designs sort of started to develop, we had this experiential buck that we could position in the studio, outside, at funny angles. We could put it under hot lamps so that we could feel the heat of the Arizona desert. We could blow fans on us and put our coats on and pretend we were in Michigan in the winter.
Yeah.
And in VR, of course, we're placed in that environment as well, and we could evolve the design over time as well. That kind of process was absolutely essential in making sure that the vehicle really interacted. And I tell you, tipping a studio model over in a studio makes a lot of people very worried. Our health and safety people were not keen on what we were doing, but it's through that you work out where you put the contact points, what features you need to restrain objects that would otherwise sit neutrally flat on a flat surface. When you tip the model over, things fly out the window. So you got to go through those experiences to work out what the right thing to do is.
So what about the details? I saw that functionality is fused with the aesthetics, but as a designer, you start to think the function first and then aesthetics, or it's something that goes together, it flows together?
I think the first places that we actually really saw any sketches of the vehicle was they emerged on little scraps of paper. And what we actually did for the Broncos, we had 5 target customers, and we alluded to them in the videos you've just seen. And we really got to know them. They're real people. And we sort of planned a sort of day in their life and just went through it in incredible sort of detail, a lot of critical thinking, a lot of identifying things were not going right, and then finding things that might help. Some of them they exist and we could use as proxies, but also just drawing stuff, going like, here's a problem, this is how we might deal with it. And it was actually there when I go back and I look at those boards covered in thousands of bits of information, we see the beginnings of the design. Actually, the design emerges from that. But the designers, of course, very, very hugely talented team. They've got a natural eye for aesthetic, and they understood the richness of the story of Bronco and the identifying criteria, the graphics and the simple elements that make a Bronco. They understood that. So this was naturally infusing through what they were doing. So the two come together sort of simultaneously, and that's the point that we then break and go into VR and CAD and first experiential models.
Yeah. So we have a lot of questions, but I think the most interesting one is if the new Bronco, from our audience, if the new Bronco will have a long life like the old one or the first one. What do you think?
I hope so. I really hope so. So this was a common thread that we learned right at the beginning of the program. We heard people talk about what Bronco meant to them, but very often we were hearing it was the dad's car, it was the family's car, it was the spare car. It was my car when I went to college. You know, it went in the garage. It's getting restored. You know, it had this long life. And actually, when you started to look at how the vehicles evolved over time, they had these different characters. That's why we built the modularity into it. So we haven't got a crystal ball for how things will turn out. But my earnest hope is that these vehicles, they will have a long life. Hopefully they will stay in a family. They will play that part in a family's story. But even when they change hands, they will keep on changing and modifying and becoming other things. And we're sort of on the brink really of seeing that beginning to happen, because as the Broncos are now in the hands of the public and also in the hands of the aftermarket, we're now seeing them develop parts for it. You know, we're seeing multiple fenders and bumpers and grills and other components all over the exterior. There's a show in Las Vegas coming up called SEMA, and we're seeing already these companies beginning to offer variations on our theme, and it's really exciting to see how the vehicle now, once we've handed it off, is going to gain this other creative life. Some of it we will like, others bits we probably won't like very much at all. But the purpose of presenting the vehicle in this way is to enable the vehicle to have this really, really long life.
So we will see a lot of different variants also made by the third parts, or from customizers and clients that want to have their own customization on your new vehicle. And you know that a lot of young designers and young students are following us in this journey for Autostyle digital design. I want to ask you some advices for young designers. For example, if they want to show their portfolio to Ford, or entering this world, which are your advices?
My advice is a really good world to be in. People will always need to move themselves and things, and so transportation, I think, is a great field, but it's an elite field. It requires the best. And so the teams to get into is hard to get in, but the best way to show yourself to the studios, I think, is to use social media. I mean, there isn't a designer that I know that doesn't spend a lot of time checking out what's going on Instagram, for example, or Behance. So we see this stuff. We're constantly scanning. You shouldn't be afraid to reach out either. Of course, jobs are posted. I think you obviously need to keep your eyes on there. On LinkedIn, that's used by big corporations more than things like Instagram to advertise for positions. But you've got to come out, and it's a very difficult thing to do, because you need to have really hot sketches. That's a baseline. To be able to think with a pen and a piece of paper, I don't think has gone away yet. But you also need to, I think a graduate needs to have that side, understand problem solving and the business that the car will sit in, and then also, on the other hand, be able to express it digitally. I think that I've referred to virtual reality several times in this conversation. I think it's essential that you've got your arms around that, whether it's Alias or Max or Maya, or increasingly 3D immersive stuff like Gravity Sketch. You really need to have that in your kit, and then you become. Because if you imagine that you're an applicant to a company that's got studios full of people who've been doing this every day for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, right? And you're coming straight out of college, what is your edge? How are you much better than those guys? And I think it's the embracing of the new technologies that is probably your golden ticket.
So the very last question, and thank you for your time, Paul, is the new technology. So digital tool will help to develop maybe a fast process, but also for the creating the real thing, the real car. Maybe 3D printing or other things are helping you to create just a mock-up better and faster, and maybe with all your team that work together on all the parts.
Absolutely. I've been using 3D printing in my career since 1997. There's nothing new under the sun, right? So the car industry is very good at embracing hot technologies very early. And so that is really important. The difference between then and now is that now 3D printing is the hands of the public as well. So we're now at a point where, you don't need a a saw and a welding gun in order to make bits to go in a car. You can create them in CAD, and the public can make them themselves. And so we need to philosophize about how we can embrace that or just deal with that. And you see some of our current products actually embrace that as well. As an individual, as a designer, 3D printing is a great tool. And then working as much in 3D as possible is really important. My team, we sketch in 3D. We sketch vehicles around us.
Yeah.
We do it all the day. Just to my left is all of my equipment. It's critical.
I think it's a very, very good advice for our young designers. And thank you, Paul. Thank you to all your team, your beautiful team. And I really love this new Bronco. And I hope to see also in Europe, because the dimension and the engine and all the things are not so common here in Europe. But I hope to see in our street in Italy, and to meet you by person, maybe when the time will be good, also for this pandemic time. But thank you so much, and
thank you very much.
I hope to see this car by the street very soon, also here. Thank you.
Sure. Cheers, then. Thank you, March.
And this adventure with Bronco and Ford and Paul Red is over, but was very interesting. Thank you for all the questions. I cannot just put all these questions to Paul, because we need 2 days and more to put all these questions, but thank you for your attention. And for young designers, remember that we have also the contest, Drive the Future. We can drive the future also as Ford did with Bronco. You can find the link there. Please subscribe and get ready for your entering with your ideas in this contest, just to show which is the future of the automotive design. And thank you. Just to remind you that next Thursday we'll have Luxottica. So we'll speak about eyewear, and stay tuned. Thank you so much.